Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode 151 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today the one and only Tommy Chong. Tons of great stories. Such a fun interview. Sit back, everyone, and enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Tommy Chong. What is up, brother?
Well, let me see. The pandemic deaths are down. We're coming out of the pandemic. Cheech is opening a art gallery in Riverside, California. I'm getting ready to save the world with my ideas. So that's what we're up to.
How precious is that relationship with Cheech? I mean, it's something that goes on for how many years? And it's so amazing. It's the first thing you talk about is we're starting an interview on you and you talk about your friend. How important, like I wasn't even going to go there, but how important is that relationship? Like how precious is that, having
Cheech?
Such a strong relationship after all these years?
We wouldn't be who we are today if it wasn't that we met, you know.
Yeah.
It was very ordained, very serendipity, you know. We were meant to meet each other and because we're totally opposites. And like I'm Canadian, he's American. I'm half Chinese, he's all Mexican. There's a lot of good things.
Where'd you guys meet?
In Vancouver.
Is this when you had when you were part of the band?
I had just gotten fired from the band.
Okay.
I got fired from Motown, and I was at the time I met Cheech. I was working on an improvisational stripper in a strip club, an improvisational strip club. Yeah. It was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
So how you guys just bumped together and just hit it off right off the bat?
No, I with the troupe I had an acting bunch of actors, plus the strippers, you know, were obviously very beautiful ladies. And I had another partner named Dave Graham from Vancouver. He and then we had a straight man named Rick Lenz. And Rick came from a theater background. He was an actor. Yeah. And his wife had no idea what kind of play he was in. And then when we made the front page of the Vancouver the Sun, then Rick had to quit. Rick's wife ruled the roost. And so this mutual friend, a customer that would come down and check out the show, a Russian, a guy named Ihor. Anyway, Cheech was working for him. Ihor had a hippie magazine. And so he told me that he knew of a guy that would fit right in with us, what we were doing. Yeah. And so I said, well, bring him down. And he said, well, come on out and meet him. And so I went out to this farmhouse where Cheech was employed as a writer. He was writing for Poppin' Magazine, a hippie magazine.
Yeah.
And I met Cheech and I told him what we were doing and told him to come down to the club, check it out. And he did. And we hired him. And the reason I hired him was that he walked in the club with one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen. wearing a full-length mink coat in Vancouver. That was a sight to behold. And as usual, Cheech made an impression, as he always does. And we've been together ever since.
How old were you roughly then?
How old was I then?
Then, yeah, when you guys met.
I was in my 30s.
In your 30s, okay.
I was in my I was in 35, something like that. Yeah.
So
Cheech was in it. Cheech was in his 20s. Cheech was in his 20s. Yeah. So
you were born and raised in Alberta, Canada, and being a Canadian podcast, I love that. I love that Canadian roots from you. And I know you've been in the US from the 80s on, but give me a little rundown of your upbringing in Canada.
Well, I was actually not born in a manger, but right after I was born, we lived in a manger. My dad had a homestead for a minute up near Dap, Alberta, and that I don't remember. I was an infant. But my mother told me. My mother was a great storyteller, and she was like, I just found out that she was like 20% Native, and and Scotch, Irish, and so she was really of the earth. And my dad was Chinese, but born in Vancouver and raised in Canada.
Yeah,
and so. But he joined the armed forces right after I was born. I was born in 1938, and the war broke out in 1938.
Yeah,
the Second World War, and my dad ended up joining up in 1940, I guess. Yeah, 40, 39. That's when my dad joined the army, and then we went on the road and followed him to Nova Scotia. And then we lived in relatives on the way back to British Columbia, and that's where my mother contracted TB, tuberculosis. And then my next memory was being in a hospital because I had pleurisy, and then I remember being taken out of the hospital and put into an orphanage, like the Salvation Army home in Calgary. And my brother was already there, and I think my sister was there as well. But we were separated, so we never, I never did see my sister all the time we were in the home, because it's a home. Kids are all the same. And then my mother finally got out of the hospital after 5 years in the sanitarium. And then we moved to this little, like a reservation house, like no indoor anything, no plumbing, no water, wood stove. It was like living on a reservation. It really was. It was the first house, and one of the happiest houses we had. It was great. And then my dad finally used his war money, his war credentials, and we got a wartime house in Northwest Calgary. And that's basically where I, had my early, right up to high school. In fact, I went to high school. I lived in 1419 19th Avenue Northwest, Calgary.
How do those memories define you? Because it's a lot of. I mean, you're talking with these great memories, but it's when you look back now, there's a lot of struggle there, right? I mean, being put in an orphanage, being separated with your family, there's a lot to unwrap there. Like, how do those define you? They made you more tough, made you more rugged, made you more not trustworthy. Like, how did it change you?
Are you ready to unlock your full potential? I want to introduce you to the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, a powerful resource to transform your life today. With expert interviews, practical tips, and inspiring stories, this podcast is your roadmap to lasting wellness. Here's what a listener has to say.
I used to struggle with my health, but this podcast changed everything. It's like having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and life coach totally for free.
With over 2,000 5-star reviews, we're a podcast you can trust. The Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, it doesn't change. I mean, I grew up in that environment. See, I never knew a normal home, and so that's why when I went to prison later on in life, it was no big deal. It was like going back home, because my earliest memories was being incarcerated, either in the hospital or in an orphanage, or and I thrived really. Like I when I was 13, I ended up joining Army cadets in Canada.
Yeah,
and that's a poor man's vacation. Actually, it's a poor man's everything. Because that's where I learned how to march. And discipline. I learned how to react to orders, and what helped me later on in my career when I was on Dancing with the Stars, my ability to know my left foot from my right really came in handy. and as far as entertaining goes, because I was never part of a family unit. I was always part of a group, Yeah. And so we had entertainment. The Santa Claus came to the home, for instance.
Yeah.
And, there was always. Then I went to Bible camp when I was 8 years old, and again it was a freebie. And the missionaries found us walking in the fields on a dirt road, and they asked us if my brother and I, if we wanted to go to Bible camp, and I said yes. And I really wanted to go anywhere, because in Calgary, we had to drive like 200 miles to the nearest lake, and it was great. I had, to me, I would never change my early upbringing. It was magical because we appreciated the little things in life, like being, driving to a lake, or driving anywhere. My dad was a truck driver, and so he always would ask my brother, older brother Stan, to go with him, because Stan was better company. He would stay awake, and they'd have conversations, but my brother never wanted to go, and so I was always willing to go. I loved going anywhere, and so I'll go. So my dad would take me on the road with him, and I wasn't that good at company because I was young, and and as soon as I get the truck at night, especially at night, I go to sleep. And so that would be the company that I kept my dad. But I learned a lot. I learned how to be alone. That's why. And with Bible camp, I learned the basics of spirituality. I won't say religion, because I don't even know what religion that camp was. It was Christian, I know that.
Yeah.
But other than that, they never dwelled on any dogma. It was just teaching you all the pretty stories, and I really enjoyed. I loved Bible camp. That was great. It had a lake, no showers. You just go jump in the lake in the morning. That was your shower. And it was great. And that's where I learned how to perform, because every little tent had their own. They had a little stage set up in the dining room. It was at Pine Lake, by the way, if anybody's interested. Pine Lake, Alberta. And it was, it was one of the the nicest times of my life that I can remember, because I learned a very important skill, which is I learned how to pray, and that's a skill that's still with me, because learning how to pray is much like finding out an app on your phone that's always been there, but you never knew what it was about, and that's what prayer is like. And the app.
I've never heard that defined like that, but I love it.
The app is the word God. Yeah. That's the app. And when you hit that, and you don't have to say the word, you just have to think it.
Yeah.
And when you think that word, then you open up the God app, and then whatever concerns you will be taken care of. He will perfect that which concerns you. Then later on in life, I got turned on by a jazz musician about, I'll think of his name in a minute. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
But he turned me on to some really hip books. There's one book called The Third Eye, and it's by T. Lobsang Rampa. And it's a book. It's a Tibetan book about a Tibetan monk who was reincarnated as an Englishman, but he was still he can remember everything from the previous life, and he wrote a book called The Third Eye, and that started me off on a very now sort of like a quest for answers, to find out, because you find out those spiritual secrets, now we are heirs to the riches of the universe, not just the world, but not just Earth, but the universe. Yeah. And so I did. I went that route, and I'm still on that route. I'm still on that path, and that explains my success. From outhouse to the White House.
I love it. You had I'm sure you still do. I mean, that's your one of your greatest talents is your musician side of you. When did you fall in love, and what pushed you towards the music?
It was my entertainment. Yeah. All my life, I had musical skills. I could play by ear. And it started off with my cousin. We'd go visit my aunt and uncle. And by the way, in Vancouver, all the Chinese are related, thanks to the immigration officers, And so I had an uncle, and his adopted son, Winky, had a little 12 bass accordion. And so since I could remember, I'd go over to his house, I'd head right for that accordion, pull it out and start picking out tunes, playing tunes that I heard on the radio, and just playing around, just enjoying it. And then my mother had a guitar when she was pregnant with me. And so we always had a guitar in the house. And around that time, I started picking up the guitar and playing that a little bit. And then we had a fiddle player across the field from us, and he needed a guitar player, and I could play well enough that he taught me how to play backup. Yeah. And so I was playing dances at the age of 8 years old. I was playing all night. This is not one and done. It was like an all-nighter since so 8, 9, 10, 11, all those years I played backup fiddle for the fiddle player. And then when I went into Army Cadets, that's when I met the other guitarist, another guitarist named Dick Bird. He was full-blood Sarcee native from Calgary. And so we became really good friends. And that's when I got the music bug. You know, you got a music Jones when you literally get on the bus with the guitar amp and your guitar, and you have to
and back then these are big amps.
Yeah. And then you had to carry, well, we were little guys anyway.
Yeah.
And then you carry the amp on the bus and all the way to the Dick's house. Yeah. Sometimes no amp. He would have the guitars at his house. And then I would stay there the weekend. And we literally would go to bed, go to sleep at night playing guitars. Yeah. And then the first thing we'd wake up in the morning, reach over and grab the guitar and start playing again. I mean, we were really addicted. And Dick was a singer, so Dick was singing away. And we would phone, or girls would phone us, and we'd say, hey, listen to this, put the phone down. And then we'd forget that we had him on the phone, and we'd be playing for hours. And then we'd notice the phone was there, and we'd pick up the phone, and they'd still be on the phone. Incredible.
Such incredible memories, huh? Such incredible memories.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're burned in your head because what we were doing, see, when you're poor and you reach a certain age, you're like an adult. Yeah. You know, there's no one driving you anywhere. There's no one picking you up anywhere. There's no dropping you off at a lesson or at a friend's house. Yeah. There's no fear of the outside world. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's snowing, it's cold. You know, I mean, who's outside anyway? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Ever know? Are you Canadian?
Yeah, we're from Toronto, Canada. I'm still here. Toronto Blue Jays, Toronto, Canada, born and raised. Yeah.
Well, when you were a baby or toddler, and that, parents kick us outside.
Oh, we were outside always. And
the schools, airports would be shut down,
and we'd still be outside. 100%.
And they would say, okay, you kids, go on, get outside. And then you come, getting inside wasn't that easy. Because you had to go take off all your stuff at the porch. Oh my God. And then the minute you got outside, that's when you had to go to the bathroom.
I was telling my kids this story the other day. I got a 13 to 15-year-old, and I was telling my kids the other story the other day. Like, our kids nowadays, exactly what you said, they're driven to school, they're picked up from school. Their school's like 2 blocks away, and they're still driven to school. Oh, and our school, my high school or my grade school, it was city blocks. It was probably about 8 to 12 city blocks away, which is about a 20, 30 minute, 35 minute walk. And I remember days where the snow was so high, it was so cold. And I'd be walking in my head. I'm like, if I fall, I'm just going to close my eyes and fall asleep. Right? I ain't getting my ass up here because it was so fucking cold. And I remember that. And it's like, I'm telling my kids there, and they're like, it's like, they don't believe you. And it's crazy. It's like they a little snowstorm, schools are closed now. And then it was just like, you're still going to school, and you get home. Yeah. You're outdoors playing. You're outdoors. You're never home. Yeah. I mean, which is such a great childhood. Such a great childhood. Great? Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I learned everything I needed to learn about girls by walking to school with the older girls. Yeah. Because you're like a fly on the wall. They talk freely about you. And I learned what girls liked in the guy, and what they thought was, oh, he's so creepy, yuck, and it was always the opposite. You think, oh, the scruffy guy, the loner. Yeah. Oh, that's the ones the girls go, oh, he's so cute, oh my God. And then the football player, oh, yuck, oh, what a puke. No, I learned. And the other thing too about the cold. Oh, this is another thing. Be freezing cold. I was in junior high at the time. Yeah. And this kid that had a paper route, he would come up to me and say, "Can you help me? Can you help me collect?" Because he had to collect money. It would be a Friday night or something. And will you help me collect? And I said, sure. And then he always paid me. And I ended up with the guy's paper route eventually. But can you imagine how cold it would be at night? and you knock on the door, and they open a crack, they see who it is, then they close the door. Leave you outside. Go get their 50 cents or 75 cents or whatever it was, hand it through the door. There you go. And you had to do that at least 40, 50 times. And by the time you got home, you couldn't feel anything. You couldn't feel your feet or anything.
No.
And it would be for a pittance, not even $5, I don't think.
No.
But I did it because I was asked. Yeah. Someone said, "Will you help me?" Because that's one thing about Canada. If you need help, you don't hire it. You help.
Ask.
You go knock.
Ask. Yeah.
You knock on the next door. You know who to ask.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember my first paper route. I mean, obviously, I'm a lot younger than you, but I'm still 44. I remember my first paper route. It was the store flyers, and they would bind them. We had to put a little elastic band on, wrap them together, and I would be per house. I was paid 6 cents a house. So you would be there doing 5-6 street blocks and come back with like a $3-4 paycheck, and you were so happy. And back then you're just like, it was the world to you, right? And I was like 6 or 5, and I'm like going back and forth up and down the street with this little cart or little buggy, trying to do everything, throwing everything, man. But those memories, those they build character, right? And those are just and they're instilled in your walk into you. I love it.
Big time. But yeah, back in the day, when you were a certain age, you were like an adult. You just went. In fact, they treated you somewhat like that. They had respect, I mean, I'm talking about parents, because they weren't involved at all. Like my mother and father. My mother had a grade 3 education, and because her mother committed suicide when she was a baby, basically, and no, she was in grade 3 at the time, and she was taken out of school, and then she was made a domestic, and I realize now why, because she had native blood. She was 20% native, and so they just treated her like a native. And so forget school, forget relatives or whatever raising her. Boom, and she became a domestic servant right up until she met my dad, and then when she got married, then she became a wife, but she had TB and everything else. But she was so beautiful, and with stories she had. Yeah,
I love that you said she was a storyteller, and I think that's a lost art for a lot of people. It's such an incredible talent to be a storyteller.
Yeah. I'm a storyteller.
I obviously I can see that very clearly.
I got that from my mom.
Yeah.
Because figure it out, we grew up. The only luxury we had was a radio. Yeah. Because we had a cook stove, a kitchen stove for the heat, the whole house. Yeah. And this is in Alberta. This is Calgary, in the fields, in the country. Yeah. And there were times when the blizzards literally almost covered the house, the snow. You couldn't get out the back door. You had my dad had to dig his way out. And then you had to walk to school, in the country. Yeah, it was great. But so much on the way there. Yeah. I'd watch spring happen, walking to school. I could see the snow melting and the little crocuses poking up. And it was, and we would go play in a slough. There'd be some body of water, and of course there was no lifeguards. There was no nothing. And there was like the older kids building a raft. Oh yeah, and a BB gun. Yeah, that's what my brother saved enough money to buy a BB gun, and my only way of raising money was to cry, cry and whine. And my dad, every once in a while, he would, give in. but yeah, we had BB guns, and we played with them. That was our and slingshots. I can still make a good slingshot. And oh my God! Oh, it was, but then I found out I'm Native. So it was just normal. In fact, our toys, we never had toys.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I want this toy or that toy. It wasn't until we moved into the city, I had a neighbor who would collect things and do things. And I was never a finisher.
Yeah.
And my dad was a gambler. So my dad was always bringing home like bargains, stuff that he had won. As opposed to bought. He never bought. He was Chinese. He would never buy anything because he could always know some Chinaman or somebody that could get it for him.
Or barter.
If you needed it.
Barter.
If you
trade,
needed it. If you needed it. The only thing my dad ever really bought was food for the house, I mean, and then we had our own garden. We had a garden. Yeah. We had a vegetable garden, and it wasn't one of these, flowers and sweet. It was potatoes, carrots.
I think you know what? I think that's a lost art. Like my father-in-law, every year his passion is his garden, and that's where he spends his summers or his garden. And he's like, we get probably about two buckets full of like tomatoes and a massive bucket full of of potatoes and onions. And like literally they eat off their garden all winter.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. And it's healthy as hell.
Yeah.
You're not going to get more organic than that.
No. What's the nationality?
He's Portuguese. We're Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
And he makes his own, and he still makes his own wine. He's in his late 70s, still makes his own wine.
Of course.
He just spent the other day $800 on grapes to make his wine. It's wine time right now. He's getting everything all done, get ready to make his, and he literally makes wine for the whole street. He makes wine for everybody.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're not just going to make it for yourself.
No.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
That's what neighbors did.
Yeah.
That's what neighbors did. They shared. You share everything. When I was a kid, too, the bad kids, they would go raid gardens. That was at night. Like the commandos. You go out there and and create mischief. But I love it. You talk about childhood. No, I was going to tell you about toys. Okay, there's no toys store. So if you want a toy, you made your toy.
Yeah.
But finding out that I'm 8% Native.
Yeah.
My favorite toy was a knife. And my brother too. We learned how to throw knives into the shed.
Yeah.
We come into the house, Mom. Can I have the paring knife? Okay. Now don't cut yourself. It's sharp. That.
Of course. Yeah.
And then at night I would carve, but I'd sit by the fire and carve knives, carve spears, carve guns. I once carved a pistol.
Yeah.
That was their toys.
Yeah.
If you wanted a toy, you made it.
Make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a great childhood. What a great childhood.
It was.
And it's crazy, as the younger generation would never understand that, right? That's amazing. So
every once in a while you run across some, into the crafts.
Yeah.
I've got a grandson, that he likes to hang with me and because I'm still,
still kid at heart too, though.
Oh yeah. Here's one of my knives I carved. I carved what we call like letter openers. This is a letter opener, bamboo. I'm, and then I carved these the joint holders. They originally were pipes. It was a pipe for a little nugget. Then I thought, what the hell? Because I went back smoking joints.
Yeah.
Because I I got more control. Yeah, I had somebody complain about indica. Oh, I don't like to smoke indica. Why? Because it gives me nightmares or does all sorts of things. And so then I told him, I said, well, the problem is that you're smoking too much. You don't need that much. If it starts being negative, that means way too much.
Yeah.
I says, I learned how to smoke. I used what I call the rat technique. See, when a rat finds something to eat, not sure of it, it'll just take a little nibble, and then it'll crawl off and wait to see what happens to him. And if nothing happens, he'll go back and take another little bite, and he'll wait for that, and he'll test it out until, if it's fine, if he doesn't get sick, fine. If he gets sick, well, boom, leave that alone. You see? Well, it's the same thing as pot.
Yeah.
If you're not sure of pot, anyway, this is the way you should do it. Light a joint, take a couple of tokes, put it out. That's all you need. Then wait and see how it affects you. You see? The reason you get sick is because your body didn't recognize it. See, I can smoke a lot now because my body recognizes what I'm putting into it. In fact, it craves it. It says, hey, time to get high, But I still don't like to smoke too much. I don't like to get too high because it's not pleasant, getting nauseous and dizzy and paranoid. That's not a good state to be in. And so what a good state to be in is have that glow, just a little hint. And then you can function.
Yeah, which is very important.
Yeah, you can function. You can play music. Yeah. That's why people said to me about Cheech and Chong, oh, you guys must get stoned all the. No, we would take a couple of tokes and then we do a record. We'd do a couple of tokes and we do a movie. But never. It was all for the movies, the big joints and all that stuff, smoking, and it was all the most of. It was just to entertain people, but in reality, your body is like an instrument. Don't abuse it. Use it. Yeah.
Quick question, Tommy. When was the moment when you and Cheech, when you guys sat back and just like, this is becoming bigger than us? This following is almost like a cult following, like it's becoming bigger than us. Like, when was that moment of when you guys just sat back and just like, wow, look at the almost the movement, or look at the outreach we're getting right now? Because like it's generations, like my dad just recently passed away, and I mean, I remember my dad talking about you, and then I watched. It's generations, right?
Sure.
And
grandfathers.
Yeah. So when was that moment, if there was a moment, when it's just like, wow, like look at what we've created here?
I got to tell you the truth. I because of the way I grew up, in the country, and that the root cellar. We had a root cellar.
Yeah.
We never had a freezer. We never had a refrigerator. We had a root cellar.
Yeah.
What you learn with that kind of life, and especially like I'm being in the home, being in the hospital, being around, you take each day as it comes. There's nothing repetitive.
Yeah.
There's nothing where you say, oh, not this again. When you're like me, or you're on the edge, for little things become your joy.
Yeah.
I think we had an epiphany. God, I can't even say it was that when I was with the clubs. No, I got to tell you the truth, man. I still haven't convinced myself that I'm here.
Seriously, huh?
And living in the Palisades. I still, and I guess it's from my early upbringing.
Yeah.
I've never been able to attach myself to a place or a situation, because it's always changing.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's kind of like when you're sailing,
Yeah.
Have you ever sailed on a boat on the lake?
Yeah.
Now, when you go sailing, there's never a time when you say, "Oh, okay, I'm done."
Yeah.
Because you're always
Seeing something new.
You're moving.
Yeah.
We got to watch out for this, watch out for that. Okay, we're too close to there. Okay, now we're coming home. Okay, we're in the dock. Okay, we docked the boat. Oh no, we're still not finished. We got to clean it. We got to do this, do that. Now we got to find the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what life has been like with me. Now, it wasn't until, I guess, when Cheech and I broke up. Even then, I can't say it. Even then, I got excited, because now I'm on my own.
Yeah.
I was on my own, and now I had a partner for 20 years, and now I'm on my own. And that's exciting. And then I got my wife. There's never, I haven't hit that point yet where I'm sitting down. I try to. I can't, like I'm sitting with a swimming pool in California. Pool. No, I envisioned it. One time I remember very clearly, I was on the beach in Santa Monica in Venice, because I'll tell you. My idea of making it was being on the beach in California in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I know in Canada, everybody is snowed in and everything else. I'm on the beach, suntan. There's no one else up there, just me. And I'm looking up at where I'm living now, and I'm thinking to myself, I just had an epiphany. I said, one day I'm going to be up there, and I'm going to have a brand new car, because at the time I only had a Honda 90 scooter.
Yeah.
And I visualized a car, much like I got now, and a house overlooking the ocean.
Yeah.
And I envisioned that, and that was one time on the beach, and that was the only time.
Love it. I love it. I'm gonna ask you 3 different people that you've had some interaction with that I've read, and I just wanted you to tell me a little story or a moment you had with them. Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix, man, he showed up. We're doing a gig in England.
Yeah.
Motown sent us over there with Chris Clark, and it was like a little present from Berry Gordy, In Berry Gordy's, Chris Clark was one of his girlfriends.
Yeah.
And so he sent us over there to back her up. But he also got us a gig while we were there in a little club called the Speakeasy. And we're playing, the place was empty. No one was in there. And then all of a sudden, the door opened and Jimi Hendrix walked in with his regalia, with his crazy hair, and he had about 300 people behind him. And he walked up to the stage, and I swear to God, he said, "Hi, Tom," to me. And he said, "Mind if I sit in?" And I don't know are you a musician?
No.
Okay, well, musicians, especially in Canada, we always had a thing, because we always had musicians always coming to a gig where we're playing, and they want to sit in. They want to play. Yeah. And what you usually said was maybe the last set, man. Because we got to work out a few things of the band has to work out a few things. That was our big excuse. So when Jimmy said that, that went through my mind. I had such an urge. And that was before I was a comedian. I had such an urge to say, maybe the next set, man, Hey, Jimmy. But of course, as soon as he said that, I took out my guitar and he said, no, I'm going to play bass. And the poor bass player, Wes Henderson, I felt so sorry for him. I saw the look on his face. It's like, took off his bass and hands it to Jimmy, and Jimmy's up there, and we played for about a couple of hours, and he's on bass and he's wailing away, and of course he's Jimi Hendrix, and but he didn't sing or anything. He didn't want to sing. Jimmy knew of our band. See, our band was famous. It was the grapevine famous. The word went out that we were like a bar band, and I owned a bar in Vancouver. And we ended up with Bobby Taylor. We phoned Bobby looking for a drummer, and Bobby said, "I can play drums, motherfucker. I'll play drums." Because Bobby wanted to get up to Canada. He met us, and he wanted to see. Bobby was he was the kind of guy. He would travel around, and he had this legendary voice, and so Hendrix knew about us, and so when he saw us in England, because he was a kid from Seattle that knew about us, and then all of a sudden here's Jimi Hendrix, but he's still a kid from Seattle, and he still wants to sit in. Well, we played all night, and then the owner of the club had to pull the plug because we would have still been there. And then after we went up to our hotel room, and I swear to God, I never saw Hendrix the rest of the night. I never saw him. He was in the bathroom the whole time. He was a junkie. And he was in there. So I used to do my imitation. I'm getting high with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I light a joint, and then I hand the joint up to Jabbar. And then when I did my invitation to Hendrix, I'd take a token, then I'd hand it down to the floor.
He's on the floor lying down.
So that was my Hendrix. But the funny thing, that night or the next day, we're in a limousine now. We're driving to the airport, and the limo happens to be the one that the Beatles used quite a bit, and so everything's storage. And we're sitting there, the band, we're all sitting there around in the back of the limo, and we're talking about how crazy was that? Hendrix coming and sitting in, and playing all night with us. And for some reason, I said, I'm going to be bigger than Hendrix. And the whole car got really quiet. And they looked at me, and the drummer had a love-hate relationship with me. It was a bit crazy anyway. He says, "What, as a guitar player?" And I said, no, not as a guitar player. But I had an epiphany. Right then. And this is before Cheech and before everything. And so what happened when we got back to Detroit, I actually got fired from Motown because we had another gig, but we're being Canadian, we got deported from Detroit. And so the only way we could go down there, we had to sneak across the border. And so then I told Barry Gordy or Motown, that I needed to get a green card. And so the Motown lawyer set it up, and so I had a gig with Chris Clark, another gig at Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and so then I had an appointment to go see the immigration people that Saturday, and the gig was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I told the manager, Johnny Bristow, I said, that Wes and I took the bass player with me.
Yeah.
I was going to get him a green card too. I always like to have a partner.
Yeah.
And Wes was kind of one of my partners. And so I took Wes, and we had to go get our green card. And so we had to miss Saturday night gig.
Yeah.
And Johnny Bristow, road manager, said, if you miss this gig, you're fired. And I looked at him,
and you're,
yeah. And this is Motown, and I never had I never had the energy to explain to him, what we're doing. I never had to. But sure enough, as soon as I got my green card, and then Wes, he had a ticket back to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I never. And so then Motown said, "Oh, okay." So they kept me a ticket, and I went back there, and sure enough, Johnny Bristow said, "You're fired."
Wow.
And so, but the reason I had to go back is I have my girlfriend, now wife, Shelby, and our baby, our love child, in the motel there, waiting for me to get my green card. So I had to go back, and so after I got fired, I went right to the gate, got fired. Then I went back to the hotel room, and Shelby says, "Oh, you're finished early." I said, "I got fired." And Shelby goes, "Oh, that's good. That band sucked. Come on to bed."
I love it.
Yeah. And so then a few days later, then Barry Gordy called when I went back to Detroit. And Barry called, and he says, "Oh, you're not fired. That was a big mistake." And I told Barry, I said, "Barry, I think I'm going to stay fired." I said, "I want to become a Barry Gordy. I don't want to work for one." And Barry Gordy says, "I can respect that." So he gave me $5,000, man, and a nice bon voyage, and really that was. You want to talk about the time that probably was, because I didn't have to be. I could have said, "Oh, okay," then I could have stayed with the band, but I knew in my heart there was more for me, than to be a backup guitar player, because I'm not that good of a guitar player.
Yeah. I love it. Snoop Dogg.
Well, Snoop Dogg did a concert called the Up in Smoke Tour, because when Snoop and Dre and everybody come out with their records, Cheech and Chong were like, we were owned the airways when it came to recordings.
Yeah.
And so if they had us on their record somehow, I've done a few Be Real, Cypress Hill. I was on Cypress Hill, but I was really on Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre really liked me. Well, not so much Cheech, but he really liked me being on his albums. So I was on his platinum albums and that. And so when Snoop Dogg started his Up in Smoke tour, they loved the movie so much, he called it the Up in Smoke tour. And so he had me appear in LA on stage, and they had a 6-foot bong. And I took a toke out of that 6-foot bong on stage with Snoop Dogg. And man, you talk about, I almost died, man.
I'm gonna say you need some good lung capacity for that one.
Oh, well, the thing is, you can't fake it. You can't take a few tokes. 6-foot bong, and then it hits you. Oh my God. And then Snoop and I, then Snoop had me in their movie The Wash.
Yeah.
And that movie was funny too, because I was given the weed free, but I was charging for the bong. Because bongs were considered legal. Yeah. But the weed wasn't. And next thing I know, I'm in jail for bongs.
You were,
so that was a big, they put me in jail for selling bongs, but that was after the crazy Wash movie. Yeah. Snoop Dogg, he's great. Then Cheech and I were on his game show.
Yeah.
Snoop's great. Only complaint with Snoop is that he's the that buck stops here phrase.
Yeah.
Well, with Snoop, if you're passing a joint around, that's it. Once it hits Snoop's, it stays. Anything that hits Snoop stays with Snoop. He doesn't pass it back. He's a great guy. We had a lot of fun together.
One more person that I heard a story with you, Jordan Belfort. And it was funny because I was watching the movie Wolves of Wall Street last night with my wife. Do you have any stories with him?
Oh, yeah. Well, we were in jail. We were in prison together.
Oh, you were?
We shared a cubicle because we were in the what do you call it? The famous place, famous place. What do you call it? Celebrity jail.
Yeah.
And so they put us together. I was there before Jordan came. Jordan's such a trip, man. Because he didn't have to go to jail. He had everything. He had everything wired up good,
Yeah.
But he got bored one night in New York. He was on house arrest.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to figure out what to do with him. Because they didn't want to put him in jail.
Yeah.
Because New York, is so corrupt. If you got money, you don't go to jail. You don't have to. And so Jordan got bored, and he's a helicopter pilot, and he owned his own helicopter at the time. And so he got high on Quaaludes or something, and he goes, "Let's go to Atlantic City, everybody." And so they go to Atlantic City in the helicopter, and he's there, and he gets photographed with two gorgeous women on either side of him. And he's, with his, I think his bracelet was even showing in the picture. So they gave him 2 years in TAP where I was. And so I ended up.
How much time did you spend there?
I was there 9 months.
9 months?
But
that long, huh?
Yeah, I was considered like the celebrity.
Yeah.
The celebrity of the TAP. In fact, they finally put a rule out that I couldn't take pictures with the visitors anymore. The visitors, because the visiting rooms was also being packed every Saturday, Sunday, and they come to meet Chong, And so Jordan and I, we ended up in the same cubicle together, and I'd be writing my memoirs, my book, and Jordan said to me one day, "What are you writing?" And I said, I told him. He says, "I'm going to write a book." And I said, "Okay." So he wrote a few pages, and then he showed me, what he wrote. And what he did, he kind of showed me why he's in jail. Because what he did, he's got a photographic memory,
Yeah.
And he just showed me, he wrote a couple of pages of Tom Wolfe's Bonfires of the Vanity, and that first page is so memorable.
Yeah.
That next thing I know, Jordan says, "Here, I wrote this," and I look at it, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "You haven't written shit." And he goes, and he got really upset because everybody up until then had treated him, like royalty,
Yeah.
Mr. Belford, because he pays everybody. He had people paid to clean to sweep out his cubicle.
Yeah.
Make his bed. Yeah. He had servants in the prison, because he's wealthy.
Yeah.
But that don't count when you're trying to write a book.
Yeah.
And so your writing has to speak for you. So I told him that, and he kind of snatched the paper out of my hand, and then he disappeared for a while, and then he came back, and no, don't. After I told him that, he said, "You got hurt." Then he goes, "What should I write? What should I do?" And I told him, I said, "Write all those stories that you've been telling me, And because, Jordan, he's a salesman, he exaggerates And I told him, that's good. I said, when you write, you want to write the most of.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to just get high. You want to be the highest ever seen on the movie screen.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a movie. You got to write like it's a movie. You're using people's imagination.
Yeah.
And so he listened to me. And the only problem was, now I shouldn't tell this story, but I have to. because it just shows you what happened. Jordan, now he got into writing.
Yeah.
And he's writing night and day. And so every once in a while, because we shared the cubicle, he'd say, oh, I haven't had time to go to the commissary. Can you lend me a chicken? Because we'd cook our own food at night, you know. Yeah. But you're only limited. You didn't have unlimited access. You had a budget, $16 per inmate. And if you go over that, you can't buy anything until next month.
Yeah.
And so we had a little system of our cooking, our what we call our car. And the guy that ran the garden, Eric Larson, who is the golf caddy for Harris English now, Eric, he would do the cooking. Him and Mike is actually the guy he shared the cubicle with. They would cook, and now the only deal was, and then we would eat in the TV room, and we'd be alone. So we had our own private dining area, and we had a whole bank of televisions if you wanted to watch, but we always socialized. Yeah. And so it was like the Goodfellas movie, you know, and they would cook these gourmet.
I was about to say that. I was getting the picture of cutting that garlic nice and thin from the movie Goodfellas.
Well, they would spend 4 hours a day cooking, because we had to cook on microwaves, and they would do the vegetables, and what they would make burritos. Yeah, man-sized burritos. The first time they made me a burrito, I thought, I'll take my little share and then pass it on, you know, like you do. Yeah. And they, oh, no, that's yours. That's yours. That whole thing. Now, the only deal was if you were the new guy, you had to wash dishes. Yeah. Okay. And so when Jordan joined the group for a brief period of time, he hired other people to wash dishes for him. That's a no-no. And so he got kicked out of the club, out of the car. And so now Jordan's writing his book, and he's too busy to go to the commissary. He's boring chicken. And he just, those guys always push it too far, you know. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's into me for about 5 chickens now. Yeah. And so I, you know, and I've been around, you know, I know when I'm being hustled. And so I told my dog, see, everybody has a dog in prison, your best friend. Yeah. Well, my dog was like this big biker. He wasn't tall, but he could best pinch 400 or 500 pounds with no problem. It's just, so he was my influencer. Yeah. So I told Steve, I said, Steve, Jordan owes me some chicken. Would you go collect it for me? And Steve goes, oh, man, don't make me do this, please. I said, you're my dog. Said, okay. 5 minutes later, Jordan is at my cubicle with the chicken. Here you go. Here's your chicken. So Jordan, so Jordan just kept writing. And then next thing I know, we're both out. Now we're not supposed to talk to each other because, you know, you're not supposed to continue any friendships after you get out, you know, especially if you're on probation. But Jordan pulls up to my house in his car, I guess a rented car, and he says, I sold my book. They're going to make a movie out of it. What? Yeah, he says, Scorsese's going to do a movie. Yeah, that was the book that I helped him write.
I love that. I love it. I love it. Crazy stories, huh?
Well, Jordan and I.
Do you still have a relationship?
Yeah, we do. It's like he's on my Twitter, and so he talks to me through Twitter, and he just talked to me. He says, "Hey, I'm living in Miami now. I moved to Miami." And so I tweeted back. I said, "Oh, you're not living with Trump, are you?" Because he's a big Trumpy. He's a big Trump fan. Yeah.
This has been a fun conversation. We're going on to almost an hour now. Anything you want to leave the audience with business wise? You want to promote any of your businesses, talk about something you're doing right now? Anything you want to leave the audience with?
Well, I figured out a way. And by the way, I haven't told Cheech yet.
Yeah.
But I've been telling everybody else but Cheech. Because I know what his reaction is going to be. I just sitting here, and watching the news and following everything. I figured out a way to save the planet, and it's pretty simple. It's a very simple way. I want to do the next. We've always been hounded about the next Cheech and Chong movie. Are you guys ever going to do a movie? Well, I want to do a movie. And so far, like I said, I haven't told Cheech yet. Yeah. Because he's not, he when he went to Nash Bridges, he sort of burned the bridges, of us. When it came to, to who I am and who Don Johnson is, and but I realized watching the world events take place, especially the migration, we've been migrating since we've set foot on Earth. Yeah. We've migrated from the ocean to the land. Yeah. And we've migrated from Russia to America. It's a natural order of things. And there is only one organization that could cope in a positive way with mass migration, and that's a movie company. See, a movie company has the wherewithal to record, because the whole thing about a movie company is recording events that happen and to staging events. So you're recreating events as opposed to, say, a documentarian where they document events that happen. Yeah. Well, what I want to do is I want the next Cheech and Chong movie to be called Cheech and Chong Saved the World.
I love it. I love it.
And the way we save the world is that we start a movie company. I'm starting it. It'll be mine. It won't be Cheech's or anybody. It'll be mine because I have to have final say. I'm going to start a movie company, and I think I'm going to call it. What's it? Pipe Dreams. Or Pipe Dreams Pictures. Yeah. Pipe Dreams Pictures. I like that thing. I was thinking about Peace Pipe, but Peace Pipe has a little bit too much native kind of connotation. Yeah. Pipe Dreams, because they called the operation where they busted me Pipe Dreams, and so I thought Pipe Dreams Pictures. Okay, so Pipe Dreams Pictures is going to produce a movie. Well, it's not a movie, really. It's a project, and it's going to last at least 10 years, maybe longer, probably longer. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to document the migration, especially the famous ones from South America to America. And what I want to do is hire all the migrants and get them into America on a work visa.
Yeah.
Being actors or whatever in the movie industry, whatever they're qualified to do.
Yeah.
Because the movie industry can work with everybody. Can work.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're just a body, you can be an extra. You know, and a movie company is also connected to all the guilds. So now you get health care and you get schooling and you get
so all the benefits
and accommodations.
Yeah.
And not the most important thing, they keep records of you so you know where you're at all times.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the 10-year project of Cheech and Chong Save the World. Now, I'm going to recreate the march with the actual marchers.
Yeah.
The only thing is I'm going to put in is the humor and the other side as well. Because you can't walk 1,300 miles and just be sad. you know that there's because that's how humans do. They find the humor and the joy and the fun and travel and it's a hike, it's an adventure. That all those good things, all those great things should be documented, and they are documented. You see, because I know that a lot of the hikers took cell phone pictures.
Yeah, of course.
And so there's a ton of material there, like actual footage. And so now I'm not only going to shoot the movie, but I'm also going to do a document of the shooting of the movie.
Yeah.
And what really happened and what's happening now and so on. And so because a movie company can go forever, you know, you don't have to worry about being reelected. See, that's the weakness. That's the weakness of the political system, is that 4 years, 8 years, they might change everything and scrap everything. A movie company, no. A movie company, look at Paramount Pictures, MGM, they're still going. They're still going strong. You see? Yeah. And so that's what I see. This is how we save the world. And we use that technique to clean up the earth. Because what I want to do, I've got plans for creating what do you call it? Like Disneyland. What do they call those?
Amusement parks. Yeah.
Amusement. That, see, the way the world's going with AI and with the robots, and telephones and everything else, is that the manual labor part, other than the movies, you know,
they're all it's all been taken apart.
Yeah. So what we need is recreation, because that's what everybody, regardless of wealth, they need the recreation. They need to go skiing. They need to go mountain climbing. They need to use their bodies.
Energy, their bodies. Yeah. Motion.
And so I envision amusement parks all around the world that are non-denominational. You know, that it's an amusement park. Yeah. That's it. You go there to climb. And it's also a place where we desalinate water from the ocean. So instead of a pipeline with oil, I want a pipeline with water coming into the Magic Mountain and being piped up to the top of Magic Mountain. And then as it comes down, it gets filtered. Yeah. You know, it gets filtered naturally, and then we create these lakes and these rivers with the salt water, and then that replenishes the land, and we create rainforests, we create fields, we create a food source, and then the third one, that comes in three, is I want to build pyramids like they did in Egypt. Yeah. Using modern technology, but using the same what they did. They used gravity to build the pyramids. Did you know that?
No.
in order to get the biggest rocks that they had to move were the cornerstones. Now, to get the cornerstones, what they did, there was this little, it was like a little tunnel through from one end to the other. And they just figured out what it was. For years, they thought it was some ancient aliens pointing at the Pleiades or some bullshit like that. What it is, it's a cable box or a cable house. The house of cable, a rope of hemp tied to a counterweight on the other side.
So they use the gravity to push it through.
That's right. They use a counterweight, and then the greasing in the poles, and then manual labor.
It's incredible when you think of the engineering into that, huh?
Yes,
it's incredible.
And I want to recreate it, because did you know what the purpose of the pyramids were?
No. I'm getting a history lesson here. I love it.
I'll tell you what it is. Employment.
Yeah, interesting.
It put the soldiers to work.
Yeah.
See, employment for the craftsmen, the guys that cut the stones, the guys that made it, the mathematicians that figured it out, the weight and everything else. And sure, they said, because really what they were doing, they were using ways to keep the people working. You see, and then when you got laborers working, you need people to feed them. And so the gardens that were around the pyramids at that time, because it wasn't dry desert then, it was jungles. So you had gardens that would feed these people. And then also it kept the army in good shape. Because moving those rocks and everything else. And when they had to go to war, these guys were buffed, well fed, ready to go. And so I want to recreate that art, and I call it saving the world with art, through art, because that is pure art. The pyramids, it's just that's a sculpture.
Beautiful.
Thing. No, you call it a burial site or whatever you want to do it. Who knows? But in reality, what it did was create employment, and that's our problem now. With modern day now. Syria, that was the problem with Syria. Jerusalem and Palestine, that's their problem, is keeping, you can't grow shit in the desert. It's a desert. So what I see, and I can see these projects springing up all around the world, because like California, we're in a big drought, and yet we're right beside an ocean. And all we have to do is desalinate that ocean and then pump the water in there. Now, the reason they don't do it, because you got rain that'll do it and everything else. But what I want to do is create employment and enjoyment for the people.
I love it. This has been such a fun conversation. You're an amazing storyteller. You're obviously lived and are living and going to be living an incredible life. So I love everything you're doing. If you're ever back in Toronto, Canada, hit up Jeff Lopes. I'd love to hang out with you and take you around Toronto, Canada. I'm sure you've been here plenty of times.
Well, anytime you want me on the show, just who to contact.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Do it.
I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it, brother. That's a wrap for today. I want to thank our guest, Tommy, for taking time with his incredibly busy schedule to be a guest on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. What a fun, great conversation. This could have lasted a lot longer. If you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I have, just like all weeks, tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word. We're trying to build something special here. Leave a review. 5 stars would be absolutely amazing. Myself, my team, we love spending time reading reviews. Until next week, guys, keep moving forward.